Damn.
Thanks for joining us on vlog number 157 in the midst of a brutal downswing. I'll tell you about the most brutal hand of that downswing coming up here in just a minute. The actual numbers right now, let's take a look. Down 6,500 over about a 2-week stretch. It doesn't really get worse than that. I don't think it ever has been worse than that before over such a short time period. But I'm well aware of the fact that that can happen. And it's happened to me on a number of occasions over the years. And let's hope that I can bounce back and get back into the winner's circle sooner rather than later. I have an announcement in terms of a trip that I'm going to be going on that I very much look forward to, that I'll mention as well. But first, it is back to Peppermill, where we obviously have a lot of work to do. The most brutal hand of the downswing so far has come against a guy who is doing his best to claim the title of player who runs better against Ben Deitch than anyone else. He'll have to wrestle that away from a man who wears a fedora, but he's close to doing it. He was the one who beat me when I had the set of kings in that 4-bet pot with the queen jack. And in this hand, I called a raise with ace-9 in the hijack, and he didn't 3-bet the button, which I found interesting, considering that he did 3-bet the queen jack in the other hand. With 65 in, the flop was above average for me. Original raiser in early position actually bets at this for 50. Naturally, I just call, as did this guy in the button. With 215 in, the turn was the queen of diamonds. Other guy checks, I bet 125 here, and the button raises me to 275, to which I proceed to just call. With 765 in, the river is the deuce of hearts, and assuming that he either has an ace or he's going to bluff at this, both which are highly possible, I check. The button fires 5 black chips. I have $1,100 left here and decide to bet it all. He takes 3 seconds and calls, giving us just about a $3,000 pot. And at this point, you've already guessed, based on the fact that I spoiled this in the beginning of the vlog, what he had. Given its timing amid the downswing, it was the poker equivalent to a punch to the gut after taking 12 rounds of headshots. But, last I checked, you can't win every fight. The important part is to keep battling. We jump into what is the room's third $5 blind game, featuring several really tough players. Local legend Mr. C is also in the game, and he'd give me action right out of the gate. I open ace-king of spades under the gun, and as you can see in my video, 4 guys come along. With 100 in, the flop is ace-queen-10 rainbow 1 spade. Big blind checks. I bet 50, and Mr. C in the cutoff is my only caller. With 200 in, the turn is the 8 of spades, giving me the nut flush draw. I bet half pot once again. He thinks about it, shows an ace, and folds. If this hand does not illustrate the problem with ace-king, I don't know what does. Look, I can't speak for the high-stakes games out there, but in the games that I play in, and the games most of you play in, it's just very difficult to win a big hand with ace-king. In this hand, I have it, against the loosest player in the room, who also has an ace, and I still only get 1 street of action. Now, I'm not telling you to start folding ace-king. I'm just pointing out the truth about this hand that I'm not hearing anyone else say. I then flopped 2 pair with king-queen and won another $100 despite an action-killing turn card, and we're out of the gate strong. There's also one other way to play ace-king. Take this hand as an example. Playing 8-handed under the gun straddles and the low jack calls. I have the suited variety of the hand, and I'm in the cutoff and I make it 5x. The big blind cold calls, and the other 2 aren't folding either. With 200 in, the flop is jack of hearts, 3 of diamonds, queen of hearts. As I'm debating how I'm going to play this bad boy, Under the Gun, who I call the professor, as I mentioned on a previous vlog, bets out for 250. The LoJack calls. So now what? I have $1,200 behind. We know the professor is not leading out with a set, and we know this lady in the LoJack is not slow playing one either. That I can guarantee. But I'd hate to just lose to ace-queen here, going brick-brick, which I've done on a number of occasions in the past. So I elect for maximum pressure.
I'm just going to bet it all.
And given the fact that I have as good of an escape hatch as you can get, I feel pretty good about it. I jam all in. Under the Gun thinks about it for only about 2 minutes and finally folds his hand. LoJack folds behind as well, and we take it down without a showdown, which in my mind is never the worst thing when you technically just have ace-high. Then we get a +1 open to 25, and I have aces Under the Gun 2. I 3-bet to 110. The LoJack decides to cold call here, which surprised me. And with 250 in, the flop is king, king, deuce, rainbow. I decide to down bet here, making it 85 to try to get action from hands like 8s or 9s, and he makes a very quick call. With 420 in, the turn is a 3. I decide to check now, and he fires 200. Not sure how I can fold at this point, so I don't. And with 820 in, the river is another 3. I check, and he instantly slides in a stack of green chips. I don't see him being capable of turning 8s or 9s into a bluff here. I do see him being capable of bluffing. I just can't put him on a hand that he could be taking this line with and showing up here with nothing to bluff with. So it's tough. What other hands could he call 110 with before the flop and still bluff here with? Seems like he's checking down a lot of things. Feels like he probably has a king in his hand. I fold the hand, but don't feel great about it, and my biggest regret on the hand was just checking and calling the turn. If I'd bet out for like 120 and then he raised big, I could have safely folded there and probably felt better about it. The line that I took, I don't love. I lose 2 more small pots, and then I raise pocket 7s pre-flop, and a very aggressive player flopped trip aces and checked it to me all 3 streets. I didn't bet it until the river and opted to call his $75 check raise, which ultimately ended up being a mistake. So after being up 800, I'm almost back to even. So it goes when you're on a nearly month-long run of racking up silver medals. We then saw another example of ace-king failing in a pot when a local grinder named Turtle Shark 4-bet Mr. C pre-flop and got a queen-jack-4 flop. His all-in bet was called by Mr. C's ace-queen, and he took down a $2,500 pot with top pair. I do win a little back when I flop top pair, top kicker with ace-10 of spades against ace-king in a 3-way pot, though. And after folding every hand for 25 minutes after that, 2 players limped in early position, and my king-10 offsuit in middle position felt like a good candidate to try and pick this pot up. And, as you can see, my 7x raise not only didn't get them to fold, it brought along one cold caller as well. So with 140 in, the flop is queen, 6-3, 2 spades, and no one bets. Though I did find myself thinking that I'd like an offsuit jack on the turn. And I'll be damned if one didn't peel off. Big blind bets out for 20, and +1 raises to 50. +2 folds, and I decide to semi-bluff this hand, making it 250. And it only takes a few seconds for both of them to muck their hands. Then the aforementioned Turtle Shark goes into battle with what he calls the Turtle Dick. That's 10 deuce, or TD. He did well, flopping 2 pair against pocket kings. But he was done in by running 5s to get counterfeited, and a massive $7,000 pot was headed to a player named Sean, who would go on to book the win of his life on the night. An hour later, we get a limp in the LoJack, and he's heads up with me when I look down at king-10 of diamonds in the big blind and make it 25, to which he proceeds to come along. And with 50 in, the flop comes king-9-6 with 2 hearts. I bet 25, and he calls. With the 100 in, the turn is a jack. I bet 45, and he's still not done with this hand. With 190 in, the river is another jack. The front door heart draws missed. I decided to size way down here as it just didn't feel that he was all that strong, and I felt that he'd get away from a lot of hands here. I just bet out for 35, and he pays me off very quickly, giving us a $260 pot, which we win against King Deuce. And in my final hand of the night, I pick up pocket kings and get action from the same guy. My flop bet got called, but my turn bet didn't on a very dry board, which I must say was a much better result than when I had the pocket aces earlier. Always better, as they say, to win a small pot as opposed to losing a big one. And we do that before playing another 15 minutes, racking up, and doing something we haven't done in a couple of vlogs. Book a win. All right, cashing out, booking a $788 win. By the way, this this white Mercedes next to me, check out the license plate on this bad boy. True poker player driving that car around. Not sure who it is here though. Anyway, so the losing streak on the vlog is over. Obviously the month of March, still a big time loser for me, but that's okay, because February was very good. And if you think that this is just the first of many winning vlogs to come in the next few months, then well,
you're goddamn right.
All right, if you made it this far and you're new to the vlog and you have verified the fact that occasionally I am capable of winning on here, hit those like and subscribe buttons and leave a comment down below. Also follow me on Instagram at Ben Deach. Now, big announcement. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. It's finally gonna happen. I'm going to Texas to play some poker. 52 Social is bringing me in, and I'm gonna be playing there on the final week of April. So I hope to see some of you guys out there. I have not played poker in Texas myself, and I've heard nothing but good things. So very anxious to get into those games and see what they're like and shoot a couple of vlogs out there at 52 Social. Ryan DePaulo, I'm told, is going to be out there as well. So if any of you guys live in the area, want to come on out, hope to see you out there. It is going to be a lot of fun, and we'll talk more about that as we get closer to it. But as far as this week's question of the week, it's actually something that a lot of people have been asking me, both in the comments, on social media, and things like that. And that's just been as a result of what's been happening lately with the downswing. Just advice on downswings, because obviously a lot of you guys have been going through that as well. And the question typically comes in as to what do you do differently during a downswing? And my answer to that, pretty succinctly, is not much. Trust in the process. And I learned this back in 2012 because that was when my first truly brutal downswing happened. It was a $10,000 downswing over the summer of 2012. And I remember once I got to that 10,000 number, I told myself, okay, it's July. I think I can get this money back by the end of the year. And I was able to do it. And obviously I was not nearly as good of a player and capable of winning nearly as much money back in 2012, but that was the one that always really stuck out in my mind, and I've had a number of them since, but that was the first truly brutal downswing that I remember having. And there was a hand that I played during this recent downswing that shows the problem that you can have, right? And I'll just quickly go through it. I 3-bet aces before the flop, pretty big 3-bet, and got actioned by a guy I didn't expect to call, and I got a Queen Jack 6 flop, and I was immediately nervous because I thought he was right around there, queens or jacks. And what I decided to do was check the flop for pot control. And my thought being was, well, he can hopefully call me on the turn in the river and I can have some deception value, something like that. But this is never a play that I'd make. I'd always bet that. Queen Jack 6, pocket aces, I'd always bet there, right? But I'm thinking of the downswing. So I'm trying to pot control. So I do that. I check back. He checks. I check and he checks back. Turns a 10. I bet he just calls. River's a deuce. I bet he raises big. I ended up folding the hand and he had pocket 10s. So my read was right. He was right around that area. And yeah, it's bad luck, but the point being, I should have just played the hand the way I would normally have played it, not tried to do this pot control nonsense as a result of this downswing And things like that are what can get you in trouble, because then it becomes just extremely frustrating when you start losing hands like that, and then things can kind of spiral a little bit. I don't necessarily think that that's what happened to me on this downswing in terms of just getting tilted. I think it was just one of the worst runs of bad cards that I've ever had. Combine that with me doing something inexcusable, inexplicable, in terms of me mucking the best hand that time that I already told you about, that I'm still stunned that that could happen. But trust in the process. You know, for me, it's watching a couple extra Crush Live poker videos and just doing what you normally do, trying to play the same shifts you normally play. One thing, though, that I would do in years past, when I'd be on a brutal downswing, do something that a lot of you guys have done on a number of occasions. I'd throw on the movie Rounders. I didn't do it this time. I did notice it was on HBO Max, and I was thinking of watching it. I didn't get around to doing it, but you can find it there. I don't think there's a single person listening to the sound of my voice right now that does not love that movie. I just love the line. Maybe my favorite line in that movie is from John Turturro, when he says this:
"You fucking move on, Shan, you son of a bitch."
I think that's going to become my goal in poker. For someone, sometime in the future, doesn't matter when, to be talking to a friend about them, and they're going to say, "You put a move on Deech, you son of a bitch."